Hey folks, welcome back to the vlog. My name is Lindsay and this is Tiny Notes from Home. We hope to challenge, encourage, and inspire you on your journey with Jesus. And today I'm flying solo and I'm going to show you how I make my soap. So come along with me into the kitchen and we will make some soap together. Before we go into the kitchen, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And normally we would be here as a family, my husband Brackin and our 6 boys. But it's just me today because I'm going to show you how to make soap. We are a homeschool family. We live in the mountains of Western North Carolina, and our goal is to put out frequent content to encourage you on your journey. We also make the music of Sounds Like Rain, and we will put a link in the description to our music channel. But right now, I'm going to show you how I make my Sparrow Song soap. So please join me in the kitchen and we'll do it together. So I started making Sparrow Song soap about 1.5 years ago, and I've really enjoyed the creative process, learning how to do that. I will leave a link in the description to our website where you can check that out. So this video is not a specific tutorial. I'm not going to go into specifics of measurements and things like that. I just want to give you a general overview of the steps that I do to make the soap, and then I'll show you some of the supplies that I use and some of the ingredients. I make cold processed soap and I use lye, so it's very important that you do take some safety precautions because lye is a caustic substance before it's mixed with the oil. So although lye is caustic by itself, when it's combined with oil, it actually goes through a saponification process, turning the oil into soap. And so once it's turned into soap, it is completely harmless and it won't irritate your skin or cause any problems for you. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a general overview of the types of ingredients that I use and also the equipment that I need when I make soap. So starting with the ingredients, I use a combination of liquid oils and solid oils. Here I have some shea butter. This is a solid butter that you have to melt down. And I also use coconut oil and palm oil, which are also they look kind of similar. They're a solid oil. And then I use olive oil and castor oil. I mix all the oil together and then I have to have lye. I keep the lye in a large bucket and I won't get that out right now, but it's just like a powder, a white powder. If you want to add color to your soap, you can use natural colorings like a clay. This is called Rose Callan clay. I have other colors, like I have some green powders made from ground nettles, and I also have some brown clays. So there's different kinds, but this one is a rose color. And I also have some lavender flowers right here, but you can also use other herbs. I like to use chamomile flowers or calendula flowers for some of my soaps, and that gives a texture to the soap. This is essential oil. I buy these in bulk as well to give a scent to the soap. Making soap is a pretty simple process. You don't need a whole lot of expensive equipment, but there is a little bit of a learning curve and just to figure out what works. And some of the things that you will need would be a metal pot, and this would be just to melt if you have solid oils you're using to melt that. An immersion blender is a very valuable tool in soap making. You could just stir, but this speeds up the process. So when you mix the lye with the oil, you'll need to blend the two, kind of emulsify them together, and the immersion blender is really great for that. Rubber gloves are very important to protect your hands from the lye. An infrared thermometer is also a very valuable tool. It's very important that you keep your oil and your lye around the same temperature before you combine them. And so that is one thing that you will probably like to have. And also a kitchen scale that is precise, that can measure ounces. This is a very important tool in soap making because you want your measurements to be very precise, otherwise your soap might not turn out. Some sort of mold to pour your soap into. You can use anything. You could just use plastic containers if you don't really care how it looks, but if you want it to look a little more neat, then just a simple mold will help with that. And then once your soap is done in the mold, then you would take it out and use some sort of cutter. You can just use a sharp kitchen knife, but they make different cutters that are specific for cutting soap. Makes it a little easier. Okay, so now we're going to go into the soap making part of the video. And just a reminder, I'm not going to give the specific details of my recipe because it is relative to the amount that I'm making and the materials that I have. But if you're interested in making soap, there are a lot of really good websites and YouTube videos that you can watch that give you recipes and help you to know step by step what to do. So I hope this can just be a general overview so you can see what soap making is like. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is mix up the dry lye granules with some water, and that's going to combine to make lye water. So I have a kitchen scale here, and the thing with soap making, everything has to be very accurate. So I'm going to weigh out my water. This does have some ice in it, which helps speed up the lye process. Like I mentioned earlier, lye is a caustic material, and so you want to use extra caution just so that you don't get it on your skin or in your eyes or anything like that. So I'm going to put on these safety goggles just to protect my eyes. All right, now for the mixing of these two, water and lye. So you always want to pour your lye into your water instead of water into your lye in case it were to splash. And I could be wearing a mask right now to not breathe in the fumes, but I'm just kind of standing back and not going to breathe this in. Just giving these a stir to help dissolve the lye, and then I will set it to the side and let it heat up, and then it'll cool down. This will actually heat up to about 170, 180 degrees, and it takes anywhere from an hour, depending on the climate of the room, an hour plus to cool off. And so I'll just take this laser thermometer, and I'll just every now and then I'll check it. Right now it's at 185, and so I'll just come and check on it and stir it and help the heat release. And when it gets to be about 130, 120 or 130, then I know that it's ready to use. So it's going to take a little while to get it back down to that temperature. Okay, while this lye water is cooling down, I'm going to move on to step 2 and measure out my oils. So for step 2, I'm going to measure out all of the oils that I'll be using for my soap. And every soap recipe is different. The oils that I like to use are coconut oil, shea butter, palm oil, and then I use olive oil and castor oil. So I'm going to start by measuring out all of the solid oils, and then I'll melt them on the stove. Okay, so I'm going to measure out my coconut oil, and it just goes right in the pot. Okay, the next oil I'm going to measure is palm oil, and it's really important that you measure everything accurately, because if you don't, then it may not turn into soap properly. Each oil has its own value at which it turns into soap, and so it requires a lot of math and chemistry to figure out what that value is. It's not impossible to figure out the math of measurements, but to make it easier, there are some websites where you can type in your oils that you're going to use, and then it will tell you how much lye to use and all of those things. So that's been a really helpful thing for me. Okay, the next oil I'm measuring is shea butter. Shea butter is really good for your skin, very moisturizing, and so I like to add that into my soap. Alright, so I order everything in bulk. It's much cheaper, and with the quantity of soap that I started making, it just goes a lot farther. Great, so that's all measured out. So I'll just put this pot on the stove at like a medium-low heat. I'll just kind of stir it until it's all liquefied, and that will take just about 20 minutes or so. Okay, so while that's heating up, I'm going to measure out my liquid oils, starting with olive oil. All right. Now, the nice thing about these kitchen scales is you can just push this button and it tears the weight. It subtracts what I just weighed and starts it over at 0, so I can weigh out how many ounces I need of castor oil. And the castor oil, each oil kind of gives a different property to the soap, and from what I understand, castor oil helps the soap be more sudsy, and so it doesn't have a whole lot, but just enough. All right. So once my solid oils are melted down, I will remove the pot from the stove and I'll add this to it and mix those together, and that will actually help the oils cool down faster. Okay, step number 3 is I'm going to combine all of my ingredients, which will be the oils, the lye, the coloring, and the fragrance. And I'm going to start by combining the liquid oil with the melted solid oil. All right, I've mixed up the oil. Now I'm going to add this rose kaolin clay, and I'm going to add that just to give it a little bit of a pinkish color. One of the most important tools in soap making is a stick blender or immersion blender. So right now I'm going to mix this clay into the oil. So another thing I want to get ready before I mix the lye and the oil is I want to add these lavender flowers to my soap. I don't want to add them whole, I want to grind them up first. And so I'm going to use a coffee grinder to do that. So now I have my ground lavender flowers that I'll be adding in a moment. And in here, this is the lavender essential oil, which will give the lovely lavender scent to the soap. And I will add that once after I add the lye. I typically make 90 bars of soap in one batch, and so I have 9 loaf molds right here that will fill. So now is the grand moment we've all been waiting for, where I'm going to pour the lye water into the oil, and I'm going to blend it up, and it's going to turn into soap. So let's get our lye water. Okay, so the lye has cooled to about 124, and the oil is about 114, so they should just be around 10 degrees difference, within a 10-degree range of each other. All right, now you just want to be careful as you pour your lye water into the oil. You don't want it to splash, so you kind of want to do that slowly. So I'll put my safety glasses back on in case anything is to splash. Don't want to get it in my eye. Okay, and here we go. I just want to make sure it's getting thoroughly mixed, that yeah, I'm just working with it here until it starts to thicken up. All right, you can see it's starting to thicken a little bit. It's almost like a pudding consistency. And so before it gets too thick, I'm gonna add these ground lavender flowers and my essential oil. And now I'll blend this together. Actually, usually at this point I'll just stir it so that it doesn't get too thick. And this goes really fast, just takes maybe 30 seconds or so. It all depends, every soap is a little different. So now I'm ready to pour it. So I'm gonna actually transfer some of this into this pitcher so that I can more easily pour it. This pot is very heavy. Okay, so now I've got all the soap poured into the molds, and I will let these set for about 24 hours, and I will cover them with towels to insulate them. They will heat up a little bit, and they will harden and turn to soap, and then I will cut them tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next day, and my soap has hardened in the mold. So now I'm going to show you how I take it out of the mold and cut the soap. When I first started making soap, I was using this soap cutter cut my bars of soap, and it's just like a pretty simple thing where you put the loaf in and then you just slice it down, and that works pretty well. But when I started making more soap, it's just a little more time consuming, so I invested in this handmade soap cutter I got on Etsy, and it's really cool. It has these like wire strings that are like the slicers, and you just put it down all at once. and it cuts all the bars all at one time. So these silicone molds are very nice, just easy to get the soap out. So all I do is just put it in here and just push this down. And there it is. Nice bar of soap. So a lot of times when I'm working with my soap, I think about things that Jesus said. And one of those things was a time when the Pharisees were really upset because Jesus' disciples didn't wash their hands properly before they were going to eat. And Jesus' response to that was that the Pharisees were looking at the outside. They were worried about the outward cleanliness. But Jesus is concerned about the cleanliness of what's within our heart. You know, there's no bar of soap in the whole world that can cleanse us of our sin. Only the blood of Jesus can do that. You know, just like God cares for the sparrows of the air, He cares for each one of us and does not want any one of us to perish, but to have eternal life. So that's my prayer for you today as I work here in my kitchen on this soap. So I'm just going to finish cutting all of this soap, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, the next step in the process is just to stack the shelves with the soap and let it cure. And it's going to basically need to cure for about 4 to 6 weeks before it's ready to use. And that just allows the excess moisture in it to evaporate and also for it to fully cure and make sure that there's not any remaining lye in the soap. So this is our temporary curing station in the homeschool room. And over here I have this shelf which I use for shipping. And so I just pull out the orders on the computer and package everything here. So it's been working out well, and I've been thankful for everyone's support, those of you who have made orders already. So I hope that you will try out some of the soap, and I hope that you found this video interesting and encouraging. We also have a number of other family videos and music videos that you can check out as well. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more videos. Thanks a lot.